a deep conversation, sharing their story, as I believe that everyone has a story that we can all learn from. So, once again, thank you for tuning in. And today I have a special guest that I had the honor of meeting through a friend of mine. And he is a life coach, the co founder of Do Buddha, and also a crew and the director of Muay Thai at Brave Martial Arts Institute, Inc. So at this time, I want to bring up Crew Mel Bellissimo for a conversation about his journey in becoming who he is today. Hi, Mel.
Hi. Hi, Mai.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you. So the good thing is that Mel, we actually just met each other through online, through Facebook. So I'm really excited because that actually also means I don't know everything about you. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to really dig deep and get to know you. But I know Twin speak highly of you. He's always talking about you as his clarity coach. And so I'm very
Correct.
curious about that as well. So, for those that don't know you and your story, including myself, can you share a little bit of your journey to becoming a clarity coach as you are today?
Absolutely. And thank you again for this opportunity. I believe that what I hope for in all of this, Mai, is that there's going to be something that's said today that touches the heart of someone who's listening. And a lot of the times we do it through connection of a story. So my story is a complicated one, but what I would say to you is that I have spent almost a quarter century in a martial art called Muay Thai, Thai boxing, the national sport of Thailand. I fell in love with it many moons ago through a cousin of mine who his father was a Golden Glove boxer and he boxed as well. And after having a major motorcycle accident, I decided that um, it was time for me to sort of get back into working out. And I decided that I didn't want to do the traditional gym thing. So the story goes, I was a professional soccer player as a kid. My team folded. I went into powerlifting and strength training, got into a major motorcycle accident and couldn't walk for a little while. I broke my hip in 3 spots and decided that I was going to get into martial arts. I wanted to get into boxing, but at the time, my cousin Michael was doing this Muay Thai stuff. And of course, I had no idea what it was. And there happened to be a Thai guy who was teaching Muay Thai, one of the very few in the country that were teaching. And he was happened to be down the street. So I call it destiny. Um, and so I did that. I lived in Thailand for a number of years and I trained, I fought, and I taught in Thailand. And I came back and opened up a martial arts school, which I had for almost a dozen years. I've had a wonderful, blessed life. I have been all over the world. Martial arts has taken me everywhere. I've trained with some of the greatest on planet Earth, and had the pleasure of teaching someone that ended up in the UFC. And so I've had a very blessed life. I worked hard. I dedicated myself. But if there was something that I could say, I did it because I loved it. In fact, I subscribe to that philosophy. If I don't love it, I don't do it. It's just the way that I operate. Many people can go and have a job and spend 20 years in it, and even if they don't really like it, they go. Kudos to them, because I could never do that. So in doing this, I moved. I sold my school. Through the course of my journey of being a business owner, I went through a very dark time. And through that dark time, I called out to God or universe or source or whatever people call it nowadays. And I said, I need help. And in asking for that help, I found um, an esoteric metaphysical school in Toronto, which I studied, which at the helm of the school was a few people that were, one of them was the former bodyguard of the Dalai Lama. And I I fell madly in love with the world of metaphysics because it was the journey of the self. That every spiritual door that you walk through, there's two words on top of it, and that's know thyself. So, what I started to understand in the beginning of all of this clarity coaching journey
Mm,
started with the fact that I really needed to do some work on the inner. And so I spent literally tens of thousands of dollars on this in this field of metaphysics, with the hope that I would get to know myself a little better. Because what I understood from it is, while I've spent a quarter century learning how to move the body in the most efficient way possible for combat,
mhm,
the true journey, Mai, is in knowing oneself. In fact, many spiritual leaders, many masters that have walked the planet all said that we're not here to learn anything. We're just here to remember. And they re-say that, and they say, we're just here to remember, to understand what it is that we're here to do. What is our soul purpose? Our SOLE soul and our SOUL soul. And so through this process, I sold my school. I gave it up. I wanted to open up a metaphysical business. It flopped terribly. And then I came and I moved to Ottawa a couple of years ago and got back into Muay Thai because there was an opportunity. And in August of 2020, I became what people are now calling a COVID casualty. And so I lost my job. So I'm no longer at that martial arts school. And I decided that it was that two things needed to happen. One of them was I felt that this was the universe screaming at me,
mm,
saying, look, you have done 25 years of Muay Thai to bring you to this point. Now you need to step into your power, because what you need to offer is more than just some martial arts technique.
mm,
But you have all this love, all this passion to give, and now you need to channel it in a way. And so became Decorous Life, which is the name of my company, which decorous is the Latin word for beautiful. My last name is Bellissimo. It means beautiful in Italian. And
mm,
I married the two together, and I said, um, what are people after? And then it was Tuan that said, what do you mean? What do you mean what they're after? You have it, bro. You have it. They want a beautiful life. So let's call it Decorous Life. And so, of course, we did the check the websites to see if it was available, and
mhm,
all that stuff. And so was born Decorous Life, Mai. And I'm a clarity coach, which means that I work with people who are high performing. They're CEOs of companies, executives, 911 emergency response people
mhm,
that are in a high stress position.
mhm,
And the tagline is finding clarity and balance under adversity. And that's what I do, because I kind of feel like that's my thing, Mai. If I told you that I went to an interview once
mhm,
and they said to me, could you please identify a time where you felt stress? And I said, gladly. I said, I'm in the corner of a cage where somebody is fighting in it because I said it was okay. And I said they were ready to do it. So they went to go put their physical body on the line
mm,
because I said it was okay. That's stress.
mhm.
So, um, yeah, that's my intro.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful story. Like I mentioned earlier, we all have these stories that need to be told, actually. And when you share your story, I real, it really comes to my mind that in our journey, there's a lot of things that we do, but as we continue to be busy with all the things that we do, and we don't have that time to reflect and think about who we really are, like who's Mel, right? That sometimes we do ourselves a disservice. And you mentioned something that really resonate with me, which is during COVID. I feel like that's kind of, I mean, despite all of the sickness, all the deaths, and of course, all the things that are going on, I feel like that's Mother Nature calling and say, hey, okay, you need to stop and you need to spend some time with yourself. You've been busy doing whatever it is that you've been doing. And, you're not the only one. I've been hearing about this, where despite all the things that can happen to you, when you stop and you find that time with yourself, you realize you have more to give. And it's like you said, it's like God's calling, it's like a higher being calling that you need to go out there and really share your strength on who you are. So at this point, I want to dig deeper about clarity work. I think clarity is so key. And a lot of us, including myself, I go through life thinking this is what I want until I get it. And then realizing, oh, it's really not making me that much happier. So maybe something else is what I want. So we're keeping searching. And I think, I mean, there's a term for it. We're always chasing these shiny objects, right? So let's talk about clarity and how do you think someone can even start that journey of continuing to create clarity in their life and maybe a framework that you use. So I'd like for you to share a little bit more on that.
Hmm. Well, the first thing that I want to say is that I'm happy you brought out this idea of the pandemic, because the truth is, Maya, is that I want everybody who's listening to take a moment and say, when they look back at this time 10 years from now, that they're going to make the choice now to do one of two things: make this the point in their life that ruined them, that they were like totally devastated, businesses were lost, relationships were lost, family was lost, friends were lost, and that it's going to be the quote unquote death of them. Or they're going to look back at this time 10 years from now and say, in the time of my greatest weakness, I found my greatest strength. And I decided to pivot my life and go forward with what it is that was true to my heart. So to segue into what is clarity coaching, it's a big question, Mai, because clarity is a lot of things, but quite, framed simply, I would say, I want people to get out of their heads and into their hearts. And somebody said this, and I repeat it over and over again. If spirit is up there and your heart is here, this is in the way.
Yes.
So get out of your mind and into your heart, because your mind goes after those shiny objects. Your heart never steers you in the wrong direction. And so in finding clarity, we start the process by asking three questions, and three questions in each of the most important compartments of your life. What do you want? What are you doing? And do they match? Simple. That's it. But not what do you want in terms of, ooh, look at the shiny object. I love that you said that, Mai. I love it, because that's what people are after. And I've told this story about 1 million times over the last 6 months about, do you know the story of the professor that brings a mason jar to his class and he fills it with golf balls? And have you heard this story before?
I think so, but can't recall. So please share the story.
The story is a simple story about a professor going to his class and bringing a mason jar, putting it on the desk and saying, taking out a bag of golf balls and putting the golf balls in, and saying, class, is the jar full? And they go, yes, professor, it's full. So then he takes out a bag of marbles, and the marbles go into the crevices where the golf balls don't go. And he says, what about now? And he says, yes, now it's full, the class says. So then he takes out a bag of sand, and he says, he pours the sand in, and now it fills the jars and goes into the places where the marbles can't go. And he says, what about now, class? Is it full? And then, of course, he goes on, and the class is like irritated at this point. They go, okay, professor, like, what's the moral of the story? He says, well, the moral of the story is that the golf balls represent the most important things in your life. And the marbles and the sand are all the things that distract you from the important things in your life. Then he takes out a beer and he says, because when you have clarity and you focus on the things that are important to you, it leaves you time so that you can have a beer with a friend.
Yes, totally agree. I love that story. Yes, I actually had heard different versions of that where it's also these big rocks that you put, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then at the end, and when it's full with sand, you can actually still fill it. You can add water, and it will still absorb.
That's right. That's right. So I changed the water part to a beer. Um,
Yes, you did.
but it's the truth. And so when you talk about clarity, listen, I believe that there's only really two things that you need in life. If you had to sum it up to two things, you need balance. What do I mean by balance? Well, at the moment, I'm studying a psychology called choice theory.
Mm,
Choice theory was developed by a gentleman by the name of Dr. William Glasser. There's the Glasser Canada Institute here in the country. And one of the faculty members is my dearest friend, and his name is Francesco.
mm,
And he teaches me because I'm in the moment I'm doing my basic practicum for this particular certification in choice theory. But essentially the basic premise of the psychology is this. Number one, we can only control our own behavior. We can't control anybody else's.
mm.
But if I show you a picture, this picture, which looks like nothing to most people, because of course, even to me, it looked like nothing, represents the internal control system of the body. So what the psychology is saying is that we're an internal control system. Therefore, we should not be affected by the external psychology, that we should work from the inside out, not from the outside in. And
Mhm.
in learning this psychology, it marries well with my metaphysical training that says I subscribe to a philosophy that I'm a three-part being. I'm a body, I'm a mind, and I'm a spirit. So when clients come to me, I say, well, then tell me and let me challenge you on what do you do to exercise all three of these points of the triangle of body, mind, and spirit? What do you do for body? What do you do for mind? And what do you do for spirit? So if you're doing something every day to exercise that point, that means that you're coming into balance with this internal internal control system.
Mhm.
And of course, if we're balanced on the inside, that means what we're going to manifest on the outside is balanced. So
Mm.
what people really need to do, if you find they're in a period of struggling, we're in the midst of a pandemic, lots of frustration, lots of mental health issues, take a moment and just breathe
Mm.
and be silent, because there's so much knowledge in the silence. And so clarity to me represents that those golf balls in the mason jar, the most important things of your life, start thinking about what it is that you want from each of those compartments, each of those areas of your life. And when you do that, the brain works well in creating small, tiny goals so that you can take one step in front of the other to get to that, what we call the desired end state of what it is that you're looking for from that compartment of your life. And
Mhm.
that's the process I go through.
Wow, thank you for that. Wow, that is actually very deep. I feel like as you're talking, I have to take some notes, and I think, like you said, sometimes we just have to sit back, take a breath, and meditate. I actually enjoy meditation a lot and reflect back on what you just said because it is very, very deep. And for me, I like those three questions. I just want to reframe them. So you said, what do you want? And then what's the second one?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? And then
Do they match?
do they match? There you go. So what do you want? What do you want out of this life? And what are you currently doing? And if there's that gap, what do you got to do to get there, right? And it's something,
Yeah,
yeah,
pretty simple.
I know it's simple. And many things are simple, not easy to do, but that's why it takes us having being able to have that willingness to want to improve our life, to want to make the change, and then we can continue. And for me, I think it's those moments when I'm in like my struggles, or I'm in like those dark hours, and when I realize, you know what, why am I here, like why am I stuck here, like instead of spending all my energy focusing on that, how about just exactly what you said, I is that let's focus on what do I truly want, and why, and what am I doing right now, and if I'm not doing it, I gotta stop, right? Do that and just figure that out. But of course, I know it's easier said than done, and this is why I'm noticing there are so many coaches and professionals who are in this arena to really help people go on that journey. I think it's one thing of knowing that you need it, but it's a different thing where you have an accountability partner, someone who can help and grow you as well, and grow with you, right, and help you kind of what you said earlier. We all already know we are in this life just to remember. And I think having a coach helps you remember. When you're just having communications on your own, it's very different. But when you're talking, to someone, they start triggering things that you're like, oh, I knew that. I just haven't thought about it.
And that's what clarity does, Maya, is it brings blockages to the surface.
Yes.
And it allows us to take a look at these blockages and say, okay, well, am I ready to let them go? Am
Mm.
I ready to deal with this hurdle, this challenge? Because it's that challenge, and these choices that we make all come from one of two places: love or fear. That's
Mm.
it. That's all there is. It's a duality. There's love and then there's fear, and there's the scale in between. That's it. And what I love about what you said about this idea is that, sometimes we forget, or sometimes we're so frustrated that we don't know what to do. And here's something that really resonated with me 10 years ago. Um, with this metaphysical training, we got rituals to do. And in the rituals, there was one that was the most basic one. And it required us to say, it is by will alone that I set my mind in motion. So I want to repeat that for you. It is by will alone that I set my mind in motion. And why is that so powerful? Because your will center is located 2 fingers below your belly button. The Chinese, they call it chi. The Japanese, they call it ki. So you've heard of chi energy.
Yes.
Well, that's life force energy. And it is from that part there, that will center, that drives the mind forward, that sets the mind in motion. The challenge is we're doing the reverse. We're letting the mind go. We're putting the mind in the horse before the cart, and it's the reverse.
Mm.
Because if you really want to do something, no matter what it is, and no matter who's in your life, and no matter what anybody's saying, you're going to do it, because that's will.
Mm.
That's Mai's will.
Yeah.
And it's the will that sets the mind in motion, not the mind that sets the will in motion.
Yes. Wow. So key. And you know what? Like you said, okay, these are such important conversations, but we're never taught about these in school. We don't know
I
about
know.
things,
I know. I know. Well, that's a whole other metaphysical topic.
right? Yes.
Because all of the systems are not designed for that.
I totally agree. And I think that's why I'm noticing there's a lot of these conversations now. And I'm curious, what you think about this, as because I enjoy these type of conversations, but I have friends who might say, wow, that just sounds very like out there or up there, or
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
another world, because I guess they're very focused on the practicality of the things that they're doing on a daily basis, and they're like, well, I'm so busy already taking care of my kids, I'm so busy with my job, I'm so busy with my business, I'm so busy with whatever it is that I'm doing. How do I even have time to even engage in these type of thoughts, conversations, and even then immersing myself onto that journey of just learning about myself, right? I'm curious what your thoughts about that.
Well, first of all, I think it's such a great question. And you identify most people in the 30 seconds of what you just said. I'm too busy. I've got two kids. I got a job. I've got a husband or I've got a wife. I've got no time. Like, what are these people talking about? Like, I don't even understand what they're talking about. Like, what is this will and setting in motion? And listen, man, I just got to wake up at 6:30 because I got a government job. I got to go do it. And that's all I got to do. Look, I get it. I get that it's not easy, but what I would say to them is the starting point is, okay, you're busy. Do you ever take an hour for yourself throughout the day? Most people say, well, how do you take an hour to yourself when you've got two kids? Well, I bet you spend an hour on Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of the crap.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, but there's 24 hours in a day. And even people that I know that make 9 figures and have kids and family still meditate. So sorry, I don't know if I can believe you that you don't have 1 hour a day to dedicate to yourself. That's the truth. That's the hard Mel. That's the martial artist talking. That's the guy with the fists that says, listen, don't give me your BS. Let's just talk facts, girl. It was 24 hours in a day. You sleep for 8, you work for 8.
Yes. Do the math, right?
Do the math, man. And so where I tell them to start is very simple, Maya. You know what I say? I say, take an hour. Do something for your body. So sweat for 30 minutes a day. Do something for your mind. Read a self-help book. Some kind of self-actualization, self-development, and journal. Hold on a second. I want to get something for you. I'm going to go off screen for a moment. There you go. There you go. Look at that.
Yes, the 5-minute journal. Tell me about that.
What are you grateful for? What are you excited about today? And write an affirmation that starts with the words I am. That's it. Maya, that's it.
Reminds me, sorry, I also have here my journal too. You can't even read.
What does it say? It's too light.
Yeah, it says high performance.
There it goes. There, yeah, high performance journal.
Yes.
And so the reality is that, so from the mind perspective is that, look, what are you grateful for? Just start changing the lenses in which you look at your life and write down the things that you are grateful for every single day. Start there. Talk about what you're grateful for. Talk about what you're excited about today, and then start a sentence in terms of an affirmation for the day that starts with the word I am. Because here's the truth, Maya, about those 2 words. In every book, The Secret, whatever book you're reading, they all say the same thing, that I am are the words of creation. So in a video that I talked about was about money, where I gave the example of money. Most people say, I want more money in my life. When you say the words, I want more money in your life, all you're doing is telling the universe that you want exactly that experience, the experience of wanting. And so change it to, I am creating the space to welcome financial abundance in my life. I have the qualities, or I am and possess the qualities to open up the energies to receive financial abundance in my life, to receive money in my life. Because I was told once, in a course that I took, and I think that this for me, this was very powerful, but the idea of what money is. And, those that were a little enlightened in the class said, oh, well, money's the exchange of energy. And I said, wow, that's cool. But the guy said, no, you're wrong. It's not that. Money is nothing more than the amplifier of one's personality. The amplifier of one's personality. So, Mai, what does that mean? That means if you have $1 million and I have $1 million, we're going to do 2 different things based on what? Our personalities.
Wow. That is really a very unique perspective, actually. I haven't thought about that. I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of analogies and a lot of theories and a lot of people, trying to understand what money is and how to really utilize it versus, uh, I mean, chasing after money, right? I think growing up, especially if we're from a poor family, I know I'm an immigrant and coming here, our goal is just to make money, right? And we were taught at a young age, but we were never even you know being shared what is money. We're just told to chase money, but we don't even know what we're chasing after, right? And I mean, money is also, once again, everything that you're talking about can take on another topic and can be like another sessions with hours long conversations, right? There's just so much to unpack. But thank you so much for basically sharing all of that. And I think these kind of conversations are important because it allows us, as well as anyone that's watching and listening, to really have an opportunity to see, okay, the individuals that are on their journey, finding who they are during, and what they've been learning about, what's going on inside, their mind. And I think this would be a great example for anyone out there that is beginning that journey of finding clarity. Is that, like you said, you give out so many great tips already, right? So begin, just buy a book, journal every day, right? There are a lot of different little things, and I think we don't have to feel so overwhelmed by doing everything, but just start small and then just build up from there.
The other piece, my, was of course the spirit part. And so we talked about body being the exercise, mind being the reading and the journaling, but the spirit part of it is, like you say, you can have a meditation practice, but there's something to be said about going to do something for somebody less fortunate, or doing something for a family or a friend,
Mm,
and how you feel when you do something that really has an impact or really helps somebody else. There's a spiritual experience that happens. And so I remember doing outreach programs for the homeless.
mm,
So Francesco taught me how to do an outreach program. We put it together. We would go down into downtown Toronto. So the way that it would work is I would send you an email on a Saturday. You would go to the grocery store, buy what's on the list. We'd get together on Sunday morning and we would make lunch bags. And then we would go and do a soft street patrol. We would go downtown. We'd go to the Salvation Army Gateway, Fred Victor, which was, I guess, almost like a halfway house where people were recovering from addiction. And then we would go to St. Mary's House, which was an all-female house for women, and we would hand out lunches.
mm,
And my first of all, they were amazed at how many homeless people there were in Toronto.
mm-hmm.
They never experienced it before. But we would walk into the Salvation Army Gateway. They would make an announcement, "Hey guys, there's lunches outside." I can't tell you how many people came out.
Hmm.
And then the feeling that you got at the end of the day when you finished, and it was like, holy smokes, I just gave somebody a meal. I can't believe what it's made me feel inside my heart.
Mm,
And so that's the spiritual part of the thing. So when you ask, where do people start with taking 1 hour a day for yourself, because that's not selfish,
mm,
that's needed. You go onto a plane. You've heard this. We used this 15 years ago. Now everybody's using it. You go onto a plane. They tell you about the seat belt, how to put it on. They tell you where the emergency exits are. And then they tell you that if the cabin pressure changes, it changes, that there's going to be a mask that falls from the ceiling. Put your mask on first before you help anybody else.
mm-hmm.
So I ask the audience, why do they tell you to do that? And well, the answer is very simple, that if you're not healthy yourself, you can't help anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to get healthy within ourselves before we can give to somebody else.
That's
How
right.
could you give love to somebody if you don't have love for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So lots of conversations, lots of unpacking. I like the way you said that.
Yes, I totally agree with you there. And I think that you touch on like, self-love. That's a big one because I think growing up, once again, I keep on saying this, we're not taught, but as we age and as we, gain more wisdom, we know better now, at least for myself, you know. I know better now because I've experienced and I have seen that when I want to help everyone, but I forget about helping myself first, then in a way, I'm actually not able to help them at the level that I want to. I can still help, but not at the level that I really want to. And so it always come back to, if imagine if all of us in this world were focused on being our best self, we're focusing on, honing into our own superpowers and not judging everyone else, not comparing anyone else with us, and continue on that path, this world will be a different place. This world will not be the same. And so I love that. Yeah, we got to put our mask on for ourselves first. Um, and once again, I know, I think we have to really keep on harping this out because people really do use the excuse that I'm too busy. But okay, sure. If you want to continue to give excuses and complain about your life, right? Excuses and then complain about it. Because I find that is usually the case. It's they're calling for help, but it's really more about complaining and then saying, well, I can't because of this. Well, do you want to continue on this? Because if what I think this is a quote by Albert Einstein is that it's a quote about you just basically have to change. If you keep, I actually forgot the quote right now, but it's basically saying if you're keeping on doing the same thing over and over again, how can you expect the outcome to be different?
The definition of insanity.
Yes, there you go. The definition of insanity is doing something. You say the quote.
Yeah, it's the definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yes, yes, yes.
But it goes back to those three questions. I mean, listen, I've been involved in an Asian martial art my whole life, and so I really resonate with the cultures of Asian cultures, and I know because my parents are immigrant. I'm Italian, but my parents were immigrant to this country, and what do you think they were? Oh, make sure you get a job. And here's the thing: we're taught, I say this time and time again as well, but we're taught that our role in life is to get a good education, find a good pensionable job, find a partner, have 2.2 kids, and then work 30, 40 years so that you can buy stuff so that when you leave this planet, you leave it all behind anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, I don't have any judgment with it. If that's your life and that's what you feel that's in your heart, if it's in your heart, great. Never been in mine. I
Mm-hmm.
never did it like that. I always was the kind of guy who was passionate, that said, if I'm going to do something 40, 50, 60 hours a week, it's because I love to do it. Because for me, not loving to do it and doing it 40 hours is insanity. I can't do it. I can't do it, man. I can't do it.
I
I can't do it.
agree that, and thank you so much for reminding that it's true. There are we don't know. Everyone has different situations, and whatever your situation is, there is no judgment. You got to do what you got to do to put food for your family, to take care of your children. But just know that there is other possibilities, right? And I think at the end of the day, like you said, for those that feel that desire to change or that desire that the path that they're on is gonna lead to insanity, depression, anxiety, sickness, whatever it is. If you have any
Yep.
inkling that that path that you're on is gonna lead there, well, now's the time to start digging a little bit deeper and asking yourself those questions so that you can make the change. Because I mean, this is something I want to talk about is because it's related to mental health because the numbers of mental health cases are rising. The number of suicides are rising, right? Even though we are more educated, we have access to more knowledge, we have access to so many things, but just because the knowledge is there doesn't mean that we are applying everything. So I'm curious if you can touch a little bit maybe on mental health and some of the things that you've been working on that is kind of related to mental health, because I also know that you are a founder with one as a community of so, Buddha, right? And I actually was reading and watching your videos on your website about Do Buddha, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. This could help a lot of fathers or gentlemen or just males in general because of what you guys are doing. Please share about that because I feel that it's
Yeah.
very important.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's Dude Buddha is an anonymous invite only space for men. Because what we felt was, while there may be one man who will go publicly and share their most intimate thoughts and their most intimate feelings, there's 1,000 behind that man that would never do that, because there's too much pride, because they make a lot of money and they don't want to show their weaknesses to their employers, their customers, their clients, because there's too much to lose if they show their weakness. So what we thought was is that maybe if it was anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
they'd be more willing to share. And so that's the platform that we came up with, and it's worked wonders. Why? It's worked wonders. And in fact all of this is about, you talked about the basic needs, and so there's something to be said about what you just said. But we have a quality world picture, and that quality world picture on a particular subject or situation fulfills one or more of our basic needs. So when it comes to mental health, if there's somebody that's feeling some emotion about something, we have to it's complicated. We have to do a number of things, but I think that when it comes to just the overall idea of mental health, for me, the basic foundation of what we talked about and in understanding those three questions is what's key. Our friends, they work jobs, they have kids, they say they're too busy, and then they complain about their life. Okay? This is standard. This is standard life. Oh man, I can't believe it. I had an argument with my husband or my wife, and my kids are driving me crazy. And like all this stuff is happening and they're complaining. And listen, these are everyday people that are in everyday life. And it's not that it's right or wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but it's about what you said. If they see the trajectory of the big picture of where they're going to be in 5 years from now, and this is still happening, now I'm going to start drinking, then I'm going to start smoking, and I'm going to start doing self-destructive behaviors because of it. So we go back full circle to what we started at the beginning of this conversation just an hour ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a clarity coach. I'm a clarity coach. What do? I bring accountability to someone's life. I provide them with some plans, some ideas, some thoughts. If you said to me, this is what I want, this is what I'm doing, and it's not getting me there, they don't match, then I'm going to say, okay, are you open to some new suggestions and new ideas? Sure. Okay, great. Let's talk. All this stuff about being parents and being all this cultural stuff and societal stuff is really all that, what everybody else thinks what's best for us. But let me ask you this question, Mai. Who knows what's best for Mai?
Yes, my.
Mai knows what's best for Mai. And so I would just say to most people, while I can understand that you're in the grind of life and that you're doing all these things, take a step back, start doing some self-love, because that's the best place to start, is self-love. Start doing some meditation. Start doing something for somebody else. Start journaling. Start exercising. Move the body. Move the energy. When you're stuck, it's stuck because it's stuck. So move it. Move the body. Get energy. Go for a walk. Take a deep breath. Your kids are driving you nuts. Listen, honey, take care of it. I need to get out of here for a minute.
Yes. Our
Go and
our
go.
marriage depends on it and our life depends on it.
Right. So start with self-love. Start with taking care of yourself. And then the other part of it too, Maya, can also be about, like, you want to know an easy route? Start thinking about what happens what you did when you were a child. I have an almost 3-year-old. My son's going to be 3 next month, and he is the absolute sunshine of my life. And I'll tell you this, Maya, that when I watch him play, the world could fall apart. But as long as he's playing, he's so in the present of what he's
Mhm.
doing. And so maybe we just need to think back to what we used to do when we were young, to bring out that inner child in us again. Because as children, we had fun and we did it in a way that we lived totally in the present doing it. And I say this in most interviews and podcasts, but don't you think it's kind of funny that the word present means something that you give to somebody on a special occasion, but it also happens to represent the here and the now? And that whatever you call God, that's their gift to you, is the present?
Mhm.
So, this is listen, if people have asked me in interviews and podcasts for decades about why did I choose Muay Thai as a career? You're like a white Italian dude doing an Asian martial art. Like, are you serious? Like, why do people want to come learn from a white dude? Listen, that's been my battle my whole life. I'm
Mm.
not Asian. So why would you teach me an Asian martial art? When they walked through the doors, they saw my passion. I lived it. I
Mm.
lived it. I talked it. I ate it. I slept it. And I slept Muay Thai and did everything Muay Thai. And if you ask me why, you know what I would tell you? I would say to you that it's the only thing I ever did in my life where I totally lived in the present.
Mm. That is beautiful, Mel. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You brought up a very important point, which is, we only have one moment that we can control, and that is our current moment, right? And
Right.
what we choose to do with our current moment will lead to the future moments. I Within my mindfulness practice, I definitely do make myself aware that when I'm not in the moment, that's when all the worry, all the anxieties, and all of these things that come up. But when am in the moment, everything's fine. I'm breathing. I look around, the kids are
Mhm.
happy. So you realize you do have everything in the moment. And it takes practice, though. It takes practice to continue to
Of
bring
course.
yourself back to that moment. And I think that's part of why I decided to call myself the mindful hustler, is because I'm such, if when you know me, I'm very go, 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 and I'm definitely a hustler, but I've learned along the way that I don't want to be successful and sick. I don't want to be successful and unhappy by myself. I don't want to be successful and have all these other things that I had to sacrifice. So the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I have a mindful journey throughout it all. And being mindful is knowing what you're doing in the moment and enjoying the moment. So thank you so much for bringing that back. And I can't believe it. Like I said, when you have a great conversation, it could last forever, and it's already 1 hour. So I just want
Just
to,
like that.
I know, I just want to acknowledge you for spending the time here for me to pick your brains and just to share your journey. And for everyone that's listening, if you resonate with what Mel has said, you can definitely follow Mel on Facebook, right?
So
When
Facebook, yeah.
Yes, and when I share this, if you're listening to the podcast, I will share it in the podcast notes so that you're able to get the link to follow Mel, and you can connect with him online and ask him any other questions as well. But at this point, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for watching, for tuning in, and I look forward to our next heart to heart conversation with you. So, with that, just want to say bye.
Thank you, Mai. Thank you for having me